This episode is brought to you by Host Defense Mushrooms. Host Defense makes some of the finest mushroom supplements available and believes that mushrooms, including the root-like system called mycelium, can be used to augment the body's immune system, support mental clarity and focus, and support a multitude of body systems for optimal health. They use only the highest quality organic non-GMO mushrooms that are grown right there on their farm, and they maintain complete control over all growing and harvesting processes. Basically, they are quite literally some of the best mushroom supplements that you can find. To learn more, you can visit hostdefense.com.
The main thing that lion's mane is recognized for is the fact that it can help rebuild brain cells. It can help rebuild connections within the brain and stimulate new nerve growth. So when I heard about lion's mane, I can honestly tell you that the studies on it and the experience, the personal experience with it, is profound.
Hello, listeners. Welcome back to the Holistic Navigator podcast, where we believe in the body's ability to heal itself if it's given the proper nutrients and care it deserves. My name is Brian Strickland. I'm the producer of the show, and here with me in the studio, as always, is your host, Ed Jones. On today's episode, we're speaking with Tom Dadant, who is just a really awesome guy, honestly. He's got nearly 50 years in the industry, and his experience ranges from organic farming to being a national educator for some of the biggest names in natural health, including his current post with Host Defense. We're chatting with Tom about a mushroom called lion's mane today. And from form to function, lion's mane is one mushroom that is completely fascinating. And it's really unbelievable how nature can produce such a unique nutrient. We're going to go ahead and get right into this episode because we have a lot of ground to cover. So allow me to introduce your host, Mr. Ed Jones.
Thank you, Brian, for another exciting Holistic Navigator on the horizon. Today, I have a gentleman that I'm so excited about, Tom Dadant, which I probably screwed it up, but I am so excited about this gentleman. And the reason is because if you've heard me over the past 90-plus podcasts, some of these, not all, I speak very, very passionately about my belief in, number one, nutrition and how it can affect so much of our life and longevity, but specifically about mushrooms, medicinal mushrooms, not psychedelic, not the ones on the salad bars, but the ones, all the other ones included in this. And we've been fortunate to have two other podcast on the Holistic Navigator that educated people greatly on this with Jerry Angelini from Host Defense. But today we have the gentleman, Tom, which I've been speaking to a little bit before, and he's in California, so he got up early this morning. And Tom is, he's not a youngster like myself. I'm not a youngster. He's been doing basically this kind of information and learning for 52 years. He was early on an organic farmer in Hawaii. He's done his own juice companies. He's lived the life. He's been an educator for two major companies for the last 25 years. And I love the fact that he said he's an herbal storyteller. So welcome, Tom, to the Holistic Navigator.
Oh, and thank you very much. It's really great to be here. I appreciate you having me on. It's always great.
Well, we need to kind of put all these, us old timers need to put this information down. And in other countries, not here, but in other countries, they kind of call people over 60 elders because they actually think they might know something. And you and I both are elders of this society, but especially in the field of holistic nutrition and herbal medicine. And, I'm an experimenter. There's no doubt. Anyone who listens to the one podcast I did where I talk about my supplement program, they understand, I am a self-appointed guinea pig. No one needs to take as many things as I do, but I experiment. I do this for mainly learning. And I, again, repeat, I don't think it's probably going to super extend my life any more than kind of what the clock has dialed in. But it's all about quality of life. It's about being resilient and robust and not being afraid of viruses, because we know we have a great immune system that can tackle almost anything that comes our way. And that doesn't happen with hope alone. It comes with education and knowledge and wisdom. And to me, wisdom is as important as knowledge. And much of the medical world, has a worship for academia. And I do believe heavily in science, but they have no regard for experience, for wisdom, for respect of herbal medicine. And, a big chunk of the world still uses herbal botanical medicines. Why? Because it's safe, it works, it's inexpensive, and it is available easily to those people who know what to do with it. So we want to talk about this one specific mushroom today that I have used off and on probably hundreds of times. I use it every time almost that I have a big appearance, say on television or a radio broadcast. I don't always do it on the podcast here because I'm so used to doing it. If I lack sleep one night and I have to be sharper at writing articles, I will do lion's mane. And I looked up the picture of lion's mane again. It is a gorgeous mushroom, and I just am always intrigued by these mushrooms. And so, Tom, let's start talking about lion's mane. Can give us a little intro into that?
Well, I'll tell you what. The first intro I'm going to give you is for those folks out there that are information geeks, so to speak, kind of like yourself. And there are a couple of websites, if you want to go to, that you can look up for yourself. Some amazing research on this mushroom that we're going to talk about, lion's mane, and on any of the other medicinal mushrooms. One of them is called mushroomreferences.com. So that's just simple mushroom references, all one word, .com. And the other one is the government site for peer-reviewed scientific studies. So that's a little bit geekier, but and that's called PubMed, PubMed.gov, G-O-V. And PubMed.gov is literally a peer-reviewed scientific research site. So if you like this kind of information, those two can serve you really well. Now, to talk about what Ed's talking about, the main thing that lion's mane is recognized for is the fact that it can help rebuild brain cells. It can help rebuild connections within the brain and stimulate new nerve growth. So, at 72 years old, I can honestly say I was a child of the 60s. And I can honestly say that, people used to tell me, don't do that. You're going to rot your brain and you'll never get it back. So when I heard about lion's mane, I can honestly tell you that the studies on it and the personal experience with it is profound. Everybody that I've ever recommended it to talks about the enhanced mental clarity that they get, the enhanced recall that they get. They've done numerous studies, and you may know out there that there are 3 different kinds of studies that scientists do. They do what's called an in vitro. That's in glass. That means like in a test tube. Then they do an in vivo, and usually in vivo starts out with animals, mice or rats or some other kind of animal, depending on what they're looking to do. And then they go into human studies. Well, lion's mane has had all 3. And in the human studies for lion's mane, it's been shown to really improve cognitive functioning, especially in people between the ages of 50 and 80. That's who they were testing it on. All these tests came out of Japan, where they're big mushroom aficionados, and they found that the memory and the recall and the ability to concentrate were all enhanced by taking lion's mane mushroom.
Well, and let me interject real quick.
You can, yeah.
And what I want to do is make things very, very clear and concise, as you already have done for the listeners. So let's just, again, I want to plug the fact that we have to be very informed consumers, because in the field of any area that we talk about, there's good, better, and best. And we just don't want anything but the best when it comes to supporting our nutritional status. There are things that we could actually be concerned about in companies who are not having the quality control, transparency, and ethics that, like, I love Host Defense. To me, they are the ultimate of companies that produce the most heavily researched and quality products. So I want to say right now, let's just assume that the person's listening and they're like, they don't have many more minutes left. They want to get lion's mane. And without too many specifics, tell me dosages, because you know what? That's one thing that I don't really have a clue, because not always do we just know that what's on the box, the label. And I know that we have to be cautious and not go overboard with things and not be unreasonable. But, there's what I call maintenance dosing of natural medicine. There's therapeutic dosing. Someone who maybe is doing very well and just, doesn't really need a lot of help might do it less. I'm asking you this question. I'm not making this statement. But for me, I'm a huge fan of doing therapeutic dosing when needed. So what are the studies revealing as far as how much a person needs to take?
Well, that's a really interesting question. And we try at Host Defense, because we really want to be compliant with the FDA and with the Dietary Health and Supplement Education Act. We don't talk about it in the form of dosing, because dosing is kind of the term that you would use if you were taking a medicine or a pharmaceutical drug. So because these are food supplements, and lion's mane especially is a food. It's a delicious mushroom, by the way. These are servings, and serving sizes can range anywhere from the recommended on the label of 2 capsules, which is a gram, 1 gram of, once or twice a day. They can range up safely all the way up to 6 to 9 grams a day. In some of the human clinical trials, they've taken that much. Now, for activity, lion's mane seems to be extremely effective at people at the serving size that we recommend on the label. Now, other people have done exactly what you do, Ed, and I'm in that camp, by the way. I want to take it until I feel it. That's how I was trained by my herbal teacher, that, you take it till you feel it, and then you back it off a little bit, because now you've loaded enough that it's having the effect on you. So for lion's mane, it's a very safe mushroom. It's a medicinal mushroom, but it's also a gourmet mushroom. So it's food. And on the label, it says take 2 capsules. Each one is 500 milligrams. That's the recommended serving size. So anywhere from 2 to 4 capsules a day is really a very nice entry level, if you will, to take it.
I like that. And, even on Healthline, the kind of the pop-up that comes with any question you ask now on natural medicine, now that Google has changed algorithms 3 years ago and kind of has shifted things where it's not easy to find the information at certain points, but because that certainly is censorship to me. However, and real quick personal question. I know that just intuitively I feel the effects quicker when I do the liquid version opposed to the capsules. And I'm guessing that may be a 3 to 5 minute head start, but you tell me, is it super advantageous to do liquid?
Yeah, that's about right. And the fact of the matter is that really some of the newer studies on lion's mane, we hear a lot on the news about microbiome, right? About our probiotics and our microbiome. Well, if I were to ask you, we have 2 brains. We've got a brain on top of our shoulders. Where's our second brain?
Yeah, the intestines.
The intestines, right. And so there's been some great studies on lion's mane really supporting healthy intestinal function and healthy intestinal, the microbiome in the intestine. So it's when you're taking it in the capsule form, it takes a while for digestion. It takes a while to start moving through your intestinal tract. And so it has a slower, if you will, reaction time. But it's going to build cumulatively. So for somebody who's working on something long-term and they really want a long-term effect, for my personal opinion, this is my personal opinion, my experience, taking the capsules is great because you're getting it regularly and it's going through your intestinal tract. It's working with that second brain, if you will, as well as working on the brain on top of your shoulders. But the liquid is probably 5 to 10 minutes and you're feeling it. And so I'm the same way that you are. I love taking lion's mane just before I maybe go on the air or before I sit down to do some research or write a paper. It's a great way to sort of pull everything together. And I know that when I take it, I'm actually allowing my brain to open up some of those pathways and regenerate some of the pathways within the brain.
I love that. Quick question. If I go to a fancy grocery store and they're selling lion's mane in the section of food, is cooking it going to destroy some of the potential benefits?
No, not really. The best way to cook it, especially if you like lobster, is to slice it about half an inch to an inch thick and saute it in butter or olive oil. And it tastes very much like lobster. Got the same texture, absolutely delicious mushroom. As long as you're not overcooking it. You don't want to. Actually, it's a great question, though, Ed, because most people don't understand if you don't cook a mushroom, you're not going to get the benefits. The chitin, the protein that holds that mushroom together, gives it structure, is indigestible by our digestive tract. So we can't break it down. So think of it like a scaffold, or even better in weaving, like a whoop and a wharf. You can't get at some of the things that are in that lion's mane, like what they call the erinacines and the hericenones, without cooking it. So it needs to be heated. We do that when we process it at Host Defense. We grow it out on brown rice because it absolutely loves growing on brown rice, and we heat treat it to break it into usable components.
I like that, usable components. So much of what we need nutritionally has to be broken down either by our own systems or perhaps by something before it actually gets into us. And I remember being in Anaheim probably 3 years ago with about 5 of my employees, and we had one of those like private dinners, a good number of us, with Paul Stamets, the I guess CEO of a Host Defense. But the levels that company goes to leave nothing uncovered. I mean, I bet there's nothing they haven't touched on. I guarantee you, from the air that's exposing it to the water, to the nutrients, to the growth of it, the harvesting, the packaging, the ship. I mean, it is one of those that is the kind of example that companies should try to strive for. There's no doubt. I just love Host Defense. People who have listened to me over some of the past 90 episodes, I constantly say I'm convinced that the body will heal itself if we give it what it needs, but also take away what may be harming it. And, that's like the analogy of sleep. I mean, we don't have insomnia because, we lack the sleeping pill chemical. We have problems other ways that we need to deal with. And also, I know I did a podcast with a physician, and I'm trying to think back, but the topic was on how to recover from brain trauma. And he was like a neurologist physician, and we talked about so many things that, especially in the area of concussion or stroke or other issues with real brain damage, that there are so many options that the traditional physicians, again, have zero clue about. Not their fault. It's the broken system. They just don't have the toolbox because they're not given the toolbox. But I know that lion's mane may have also some benefits for recovery from maybe some nervous system injuries.
Well, I tell you, there's and again, the caveat we have to make sure that we're clear on is, excuse me, Host Defense is not a company that makes drugs. We're making nutritional supplements. So we're not making a drug claim. We're not saying this is going to cure this, this is going to cure that, this is going to cure this. That's not our business. Our business is to make the finest mushroom supplements that we possibly can. And like you said, Ed, we go to extreme lengths to make sure that we do that. But there was a great study done on rats. Okay, because that's the in vivo, that's the animals part of the in vivo study. where the rats had paw damage. Their paws were damaged, and they were given lion's mane to see if it would help regenerate the nerve tissue in the paws, and it did. They actually were able to show that the rats who were given the lion's mane, the nerve regrowth enabled them to use their paws that they weren't able to use before.
Wow. And nerve regeneration is not an easy goal to reach in many people, especially as we get to be older. I always speak about, people with Bell's palsy and neuropathies and shingles. I always say the exact same thing to all of these clients. The nerves heal slower than any other part of the body. We have to be patient. We have to support it. We have to protect it. But there's really, again, limited amount of good advice in that area. Most people, it's just grin and bear it and take drugs to cover the discomfort. But, people like you and I know that if we can support the body and optimize its ability to heal, then magical things can happen. And that's, I love my toolbox that I have accumulated over 4+ decades because I not only can help myself, but my main goal is to be able to share information that doesn't treat people's diseases. It empowers them with information so then they can make their own decision based on whoever they are consulting with. And that's really the goal of the Holistic Navigator. Is again, none of this is to be treating medical conditions, and we always make it very clear of that. But it is treating stupidity, and that's where I really come in, and I'm all about that. So, Brian's tired of me saying the same thing. I said on every single podcast, I separate the world into two classes of people: learners and non-learners. If you're listening to the Holistic Navigator, you are a learner, and I always give 2 thumbs up to everyone who are learners. Thank you very much. Because the thing is, people who learn are not only going to help themselves, they're going to help family members and friends because they can be another big influence as a walking encyclopedia. I actually thought that when I saw the Google algorithm change probably 3 years ago, I was really uncertain about how is that going to filter down to the public and the level, because 3 years ago, if you typed in, how do we increase mental function or decrease dementia? There'd been all kind of articles from Dr. Axe to Bacola to who knows that, they would have been mixed in with the WebMD there'd been a good mixture because it was based on numbers and the amount of interest that certain sites had would be rated higher. Well, it's not like that anymore. Now it's being censored based on certain agendas of whoever's making these decisions. So what's become of that is people actually, I thought they would kind of not be as interested because they couldn't find it. They're actually more interested in consulting and learning today than they used to be because now you have to search for this information and you have to find trusted partners. And again, I feel that many people find that the Holistic Navigator is a trusted partner. And with what I do is I have my trusted partners. One of those is great companies like Host Defense and also educators who can, like yourself, Tom, who can come in and, really put the lowdown on the like what was the World Wrestling Federation, the SmackDown or something on on the facts of all of this. And, I've had Jerry Angelini on twice. The two topics of those two conversations were why you should be taking mushrooms with Jerry Angelini of Hope Defense, and the other was immune protective mushrooms with Jerry Angelini. And of course, the conversation immune system is, daily, hourly, and by the minute of this past year. So where are we with lion's mane and just a basic good immune support? Is it something that would be considered? Because I'll be honest with you, and, I think this, if person like myself or yourself, I do use a combination of mushrooms for the immune system, not one specific one. But and I don't know this. Is lion's mane part of that comprehensive immune formula?
Absolutely.
Okay.
We have a formula. It's like a daily formula called Stamets 7. Mm-hmm. This is we call it Stamets 7 because these are the 7 mushrooms that Paul himself takes, and lion's mane is included in that combination. Some of the things that people might not know about lion's mane or medicinal mushrooms in general, in fact, even gourmet mushrooms, is they contain a compound called ergothioneine. And ergothioneine is one of those compounds that's really getting a lot of research now on anti-aging. And when you think about what aging does to the body, some of the things that it does is it works on the immune system to make it less agile, less effective. It works on your brain. Your brain doesn't remember things. You forget where you stored things. You forget where you set your keys. You can't find the right word. And it also works on your immune response. So lion's mane has been studied now, and they found that every mushroom that we use at Host Defense, all 17 of them, when we put it in the formula that we call My Community, that's our strongest immune support formula. Every one of those mushrooms has immune functionality, immune support. So even lion's mane, because it's working in our intestines, and that's our primary immune system, that's where our probiotics live, that's going to help our immune response because that's our primary immune system, is our probiotic population.
Well, question, and I know that Jerry covered this quite well, and I certainly talk about it when I'm talking to clients or customers. The thing about mushrooms and its ability to be therapeutic for the immune system is it modulates the immune system. And you correct me if I'm wrong, Tom. If we have an immune system that is overly active, that's not healthy either, and we want to bring things back into balance. We want a weak immune system to become stronger. We want a overactive one that is sometimes confused to come back into the harmony that was meant for us to be more healthy in. So someone with an overactive immune system, I guess I would say, they're okay with doing mushrooms?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
What they've shown, and here's the interesting thing, and we test our own products. Many companies don't test their products in a scientific test. We actually have scientific studies that have been done, not at our request, but on the request of the people doing the study. They wanted to use Host Defense mushroom products. So we know they're safe. We know that one of the studies that was done, because we're a little different. We use what's called the mycelium. That's the rooting structure of the mushroom. Most people just use the fruit body, what you see coming out of the tree or out of the ground. But we use the mycelium, and there's about 25% more genetic expression in that mycelium. So there's so many more compounds there that can influence the body in many ways. And what we found is that the word is great, modulate. It balances the immune system so that it doesn't overreact all the time. Sometimes we just get to a point where the immune system is so exhausted because it's fighting so much that it just, drop the bomb on everything. That's what happens to people with allergic reactions during the springtime. Their immune system is so overwhelmed, their body just goes into hyperreaction. And that's not what we want. What we want is a balanced immune response. And that's every mushroom that Host Defense works with can do that.
Let me ask you, because we're going to be closing down on time here. If I'm going to advise people, and I think I know the answer to this, an individual who he or she's into, healthy eating, exercise, and moderately to fairly high dosing of supplementation. And the reason that many people are, and like you referenced earlier, the number one, and I say this constantly, number one risk factor for all of us is not the virus. It's really not automobiles. It's not pollution. It's Father Time. Father Time is what is going to damage us and take us out of this world more than any other thing. And I really believe that we have an extreme ability to influence and slow down the damages of the mitochondrial part of the cell based in nutritional supplementation, of course, and lifestyle. So if a person is, I'm putting together my plan, my nutrition plan, and we do something here, or we talk about a lot called the Core 4. It's after me looking at so much blood work and dealing with people for decades, I've really come to realize there's 4 basic supplements everyone has to have as a platform. I mean, that's the multivitamin, the green drink, the omega-3, the magnesium, and vitamin D. I mean, those things are essential. But when we expand into the second core of this kind of product selection, person really is pretty healthy. They don't have any significant issues. They just want to stay healthy. Would Stamets 7, is that the one that most people would use on an ongoing basis for the long haul?
Absolutely. Stamets 7 has great research on the 7 mushrooms in the formula. There's actually a study that was done showing that they have a synergistic effect. So, like that saying, the whole is greater than the sum of the parts. That's exactly what it does. From an immune point of view, it was enhancing immune function by several 1,000%.
And along with everything else that is possible to do. And I know that I'm not going to get into specific words, but I love going to the YouTube video when you type in Paul Stamets' mother and hear her story of taking Stamets 7. And many people I have seen, I've seen many turnarounds of health, I guess I will say that when they really embrace mushroom science. Now, I don't know a teeny bit compared to you on mushrooms. Have mushrooms been on the earth probably longer than anything else?
They are probably some of the most ancient life forms on the planet. Excuse me. It's funny that people actually share more genetic traits and genes with mushrooms than they do with plants. And now I'm an herbalist, Ed, so when I learned that, at first I was like, that can't be right. I did my studying, and it's true. It's true. We have more in common with mushrooms than we do with plants, which is why the compounds in the mushrooms work so good for humans.
That makes such good sense. And again, I think there's so much to be valued in intuition and wisdom that doesn't come from textbooks always. Things like this, that story is, it resonates with a lot of people that think along the same lines as we do, and I'm going to honor that greatly. Now, tell me if I've been telling a fib to a lot of people over the years, because I've made many statements about these therapeutic mushrooms, and I kind of make the story of mushrooms are one of the most resilient living organisms in the world. In fact, they rarely can get sick. They're impervious to most diseases. Am I correct in that?
Yes, you are. The thing is that mushrooms they have what are called quorum sensing compounds in their mycelium. And so the mycelium, that's the rooting structure. It's going out into the environment, and it reacts directly with its environment. So and it's sentient all the way out to the ends of the mycelium. So it needs to be able to react if it's suddenly challenged by a yeast or another fungus or a mold or whatever. It needs to be able to react and protect itself. So mushrooms have very vibrant and very active immune systems in and of themselves, and that's why they work so well as an adjunct to any kind of immunotherapy that we're trying to use.
I love that. And the thing is, I've been in this industry, again, 42 years, and I know there are other companies that are very connected to good ethics and quality. So I'm not just saying, there's only one Host Defense, but I just have never been more consistently confident of a company in regard to a category as I have Host Defense. So I'm just thrilled to death that the trustworthiness is there. And the fact that mushrooms really hold in a class all of its own as far as everything you're talking about, how it reacts, how it responds, the protectiveness. And tell me the last thing I'm going to ask you, I think I heard this or had read it somewhere around the Paul Stamets story, that you can grow mushrooms on wasteland that had oil dumped on it, and the mushrooms can actually take those toxic compounds and detoxify them. Is that correct? That's absolutely correct. And they're very common mushrooms. One form of mushroom is called an oyster mushroom. Mm-hmm. They're also delicious. Of course, I wouldn't eat them if I was growing them on a toxic oil dump, but they literally will take those compounds and they'll break them down into their simplest components as part of their processing, and end up, actually, to give you an even more applicable example, we were subsidizing a student at Evergreen College in Olympia, Washington, who was doing his PhD thesis on detoxifying freeway runoff water coming from the freeways outside of Seattle, running it through bats of hay
that had been inoculated with oyster mushrooms. And they would take that bale of hay and channel all the runoff water from the freeway. So you got gasoline and oil and rubber particles and you name it. And then they would take that bale of hay, they would measure the pollution, set it out and let it fruit, let the mushrooms grow and fruit. And after 3 fruitings, they couldn't find any trace of any of that stuff.
Really? Man, that is powerful. Powerful. Last question, and again, it's kind of going back to my world. I so wish one of the few things left on my bucket list, I don't know if it'll ever happen. I always love being in the forest and the woods and hiking. I work constantly, so I never get enough time to do that. But when I stumble upon mushrooms, I'm so intrigued constantly by just their look, the whole structure, function, on the beauty of them on the trees. But I'm scared to death. I would never consume one because of the poisonous mushroom that can destroy the liver very quickly.
Oh yeah.
But now, I mean, if I really got to know the look of lion's mane, that's kind of an unusual mushroom, isn't it? Look-wise.
Yeah, lion's mane's easy to recognize.
Okay.
It's a beautiful mushroom. It's white, and sometimes they call it the pom-pom mushroom because it looks like a pom-pom coming out of the tree. It's got all these little tentacles almost that are cascading down it. Very easy to recognize. Grows all over the United States, especially there in the East Coast. It likes hardwoods. And it's one of the safest mushrooms to find and say, oh, I think I could eat this. But you really want to be careful. And I tell people, it's not for nothing that people have this idea about mushrooms that I don't want to eat it because I'm either going to die or I'm going to get high, and I don't want to do either one of those. Mm-hmm. But if you get a good mushroom identification, if you go out, there are mycological mushroom societies all over the country. You can find one. They'll go out and they go foraging all the time. They can teach you how to find those mushrooms and how to recognize them. And once you do, the world is your oyster mushroom.
I love it. Oh man, you got me a new hobby for down the road. When I have a few minutes, I'm going to find the person who can actually take my hand and show me this is the one to do and this is the one not to. I want to see what a poisonous mushroom looks like because, you look in books, it's just not the same as standing in the woods. It just isn't. But it's so informative today. I'm going to walk away from here with a renewed excitement about, of course, mushrooms, but especially the lion's mane. And, I've been a person who has hit lion's mane off and on. What I'm going to do is I'm going to be more consistent with it because Father Time is having its way with all of us, and especially past 50. Well, I'm going to put together my toolbox and keep it going as long as this old boy can go. Like the Toby Keith song says from that movie, The Mule, don't let the old man in. And that's what I'm doing. I'm trying not to let the old man in. So,
there you go. Well, the thing is that patience and perseverance pays off. That's what my grandpa used to tell me all the time. I'm 72, Ed, and I don't feel like I'm 72. I feel like I'm a lot younger. Most people think I'm a lot younger when they talk to me. And I've been living, like you said earlier, I've been living the lifestyle. And I'll tell you, I've noticed a profound difference in the 5 years since I've been working with Host Defense and taking their products every day.
That's wonderful, Tom. Thank you so much for being on the Holistic Navigator. And for people who may not have caught it the first time around, Tom, you said the 2 websites are mushroomreference.com and PubMed.
Yeah, references. That's
references.
Plural. Mushroomreferences.com.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And then PubMed.gov, right?
G-O-V, yeah.
Yeah. All right, my friend.
And when you get to the PubMed.gov, you can put in your topic. You can put in mushrooms and whatever disease you want to look at. You can put in mushrooms and whatever science you want, and it'll bring you up studies. You'll be amazed.
Oh, I love PubMed. And the thing is, back in the old days, which wasn't that far ago, we were voodoo science, and people really in the medical community smirked at us and laughed at us. You know what? They can't laugh anymore. PubMed is what they go to. And when you walk into a health professional's office and you say, I really feel better taking lion's mane, and they laugh, Hell, just bring up the PubMed studies. Hey, who's laughing now? Because you don't know about it, and I do. So join the club.
There you go.
Join the club. All right, Tom, thank you.
Knowledge is power. Thank you, Ed.
Thank you, Tom. And we probably in 6 months or a year will have another revisit. I want to talk one other time down the road about cordyceps, which is my other favorite mushroom when I go to the gym. And
the energy mushroom.
Yes, and I do a lot of deep breathing and do try to hold my breath longer and longer during exercise. And I really find when I do 4 cordyceps, I'm like a mini little Superman for the next couple hours. So I want to do one on cordyceps maybe in the next maybe 3 to 4 months. Let's try to plan that. Okay?
I'll look forward to it.
All right, Tom. Thank you again.
One of my faves.
Yes, and herbal storyteller Tom, we'll be back with him again in a few more months. And thank everyone for taking your special time, which it is special because everyone's life is very important to them, and life is clicking away damn quick. So let's value all of that and be a learner, which you are by listening to The Holistic Navigator. Hang on for the next episodes. We're going to be nailing down near 100 soon. Take care, be fearless, and we are here to help you when you need. So please email if you have questions or you have suggestions. Thank you again from Ed Jones at The Holistic Navigator.
The information on this podcast and the topics discussed have not been evaluated by the FDA or anyone of the medical profession, and is not aimed to replace any advice you may receive from your medical practitioner. The Holistic Navigator assumes no responsibility or liability whatsoever on behalf of any purchaser or listener of these materials. The Holistic Navigator is not a doctor, nor does he claim to be. Please consult your physician before beginning any health regimen.